Welcome to Influence Matters, the show where I talk with experts, entrepreneurs, and professionals who are turning their story into impact and their expertise into influence. I am Clara Rose, and I'm your host today. Today, my guest is the amazing Thomas Cox. He is the host of the Owner's Table podcast. He's the founder of Cox Capitol, and he is a financial architect and infinite banking strategist. You might not know what that means yet, but you're going to learn. He helps business owners and investors build wealth through private lending and IBC, which is infinite banking, which he is also going to talk to us about today. He is a former seven-figure entrepreneur, and he now owns 32 multifamily units and runs a lending network that funds deals across the South. Please help me welcome Thomas to the show. Welcome. Are you there, my friend? There
I
you
am.
are.
Thank you so
Welcome.
much. Yes, ma'am.
So I read your short bio, but tell us what you really do. What do you do in the
That's
world?
great. That's great. Talk to business owners, investors, and high W-2 net worth people every single day. And the biggest thing that I do is help them figure out how to create their own bank. Banking, Clara, is the number one business on planet Earth. From Mountain Brook, Alabama to Tampa, Florida to Mumbai, India, it is the number one business on the planet. And what happens is when we can leverage the money that we're already making into creating a bank for ourselves and for our family, the amount of capital that we can recycle through our own system, number one, and then also cut back on the interest that we're paying the banks and other people, number two, is absolutely freeing, number one, but also two, it builds a massive legacy down the road for our kids. And the Bible is very clear about taking care of our children's children. So that's a little bit longer of an answer, but I help those individuals create a private family bank.
Which is such a new concept to most people. And actually, until last year, when I met somebody who did infinite banking, and I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like,
Yeah,
oh, well, let me tell you. And just did this like hour-long presentation about infinite banking. And I'm like, blown away. I had no clue. I had no idea that there was another option to
sure.
like traditional banking, traditional financing, unless you wanted to go get, you know, mob, like, which I'm, not
That's right.
interested in going
Yeah,
down that
me neither.
particular road. So I don't want to keep my kneecaps and all those
That's
things,
right.
and I don't want to pay, 50% interest on something. So the
Right.
average person, business owner like we are, just doesn't know, has never even
Sure.
heard of this. So educate us about what this is, this foreign
Great.
thing.
So what this is, it's an efficiency model. So what we do is we create insurance contracts. Some people use what they call IUL and some people use whole life. It's not really infinite banking is a concept that doesn't work really well with what they call IUL, Index Universal Life. It works really well with whole life. And I don't want to go into the nuances
Uh-huh.
of why that is. I can if we need to. But what we do is we set up whole life insurance contracts. And we kind of turn it on its head a little bit where we get as little of death benefit as possible. But what we want to do is put as much cash in the system as possible. So we're saying what's the least amount of death benefit I can have in order to put the most cash possible into these policies. Well, why would I want to use an insurance policy for this mechanism? Okay, great question. Glad you
Right.
asked. So what we do is we load cash, we load cash into these insurance policies, and in essence, what happens is the insurance company is our back office. They're the ones that take care of the money. They make the money grow, and so what they do is they give us a guaranteed rate of return on the money that is in that policy. Are you tracking that?
Yes, yes, because it's whole
Okay.
life, so there's a cash value. That's what you're saying
Correct.
to
So
it.
that cash
Okay.
value that's in there, they give us a guaranteed rate of return plus a dividend. Now, here's a kicker. We only use mutual insurance companies. Mutual insurance companies are not worried about a stockholder, so they're just worried about the people in the
Okay.
policies that own the policy. So we only use mutual insurance companies. So then as we load cash into that, just like we do a bank, we are able to borrow against that and use that cash in and out, just like we would a bank. But all the time, that money never stops compounding. So if I've got $100,000 in there and I pull $50,000 out to borrow it, it's still operating and working at 50,000 and growing growing at 100,000, even though I've pulled $50,000 out to use at $50,000. So as I cycle the money in and cycle the money out, it never stops compounding over the course of time. So just like a bank that your local bank is here in Alabama, or your local bank in Tampa, what we want to do is we want to open multiple branches of that bank. So I've got two policies on myself. I've got one on each of my
Okay.
kids, and I've got another one that's in the mix right now for my wife. So I've got all these policies, and all these are just different branches of our banks that we can use, and we can cycle that money for anything that we wanted to use it for.
Okay. So you're essentially borrowing it, right?
Right?
Out of your
From
policy.
out of the insurance policy. Yep.
And is that a difficult process as far as, you know, how you get access to it, right? Or like
Yeah.
traditional
Great.
financing, it's like, oh, are they going to give us this money or not?
Yeah, great question. No, it's our money. We can use it. We can use it whenever we want to. Obviously, we can only
Mhm.
use what we've put in there or what it's grown to.
Sure.
But like
Okay.
if I needed to have $15,000, $20,000, I put in a request to get the money. I get the money 2 days later. I've got the money. I can go do whatever I want to with it. It hits my account. So it's not a savings account like down here at the bank. What it is,
Right.
it's a place where it's a the way that the guy Nelson Nash, when the guy that invented this concept, way he terms it, it's a warehouse for your capital. Where does the money sit when it's not out on a deal? It needs to sit in one of these places. When it sits there, it continues
Okay.
to grow. But here's the key: even while you're barred against it, it's still growing at a guaranteed rate. So you ask the question, why do business owners need one of these? Because business owners always need capital for whatever.
Right. Right.
Businesses die due to lack of capital. It's just a fact. I mean,
Right.
businesses went under during COVID because people didn't have capital that they could rely on
Mhm.
during that time. They didn't have any margin, number one, and number two, they didn't have any excess to where they could use if they needed it. And banks weren't giving money out at the time, so that's why a lot of businesses went out is due to lack of capital. So if we can create this bank over time, and as we create this bank over time, what it does, it allows us to do the things that we want to do, and and be able to pay that back on our own terms. The other thing is these contracts, these insurance contracts, this infinite banking concept, this money is creditor protected. So if something happened and you got sued, whatever, people suing everybody these days, they can't go after these dollars. So there's
Mm.
so many positive things to
Right.
this. And here's the thing, you don't have to be super, super rich to do it. Business owners really thrive in it. Investors, real estate investors, Clara, oh my gosh,
Mm.
these real estate investors that are
Right.
buying and
Smart.
selling, and again, like I say, cycling money in and out. It's a no brainer for those guys because they're always using in and out money.
Right. Well, I think anybody, it's a no-brainer for anybody, right?
Oh, there's no doubt.
Right?
So
Even if you
the
didn't have a
concept that
business.
yeah, the concept I use is cars. So there's a lot of people out there that pay cash for cars. So you either pay cash for
Mhm.
cars or you finance. Here's the thing.
Right.
In everything we do, Clara, we either finance it or we're losing the interest that we could have made. So everything in essence we do is
Mm.
financed. So if I
Right.
pay cash for a car, if I pay $50,000 for a car, as soon as I pay 50 grand for that car, what's the next thing I'm going to do the next month? I'm going to start saving for the next car that I'm going to buy in 3, 4, 5,
Right.
10 years.
Right.
Or so what I'm doing is I'm getting back to zero. If I finance the car, I finance it for 5 years. I'm
Mhm.
going to take out debt, and then I'm slowly going to get back to what? I'm going to get back to zero because I'm having
0.
to pay the
Right.
money that they back. So when I pull for my infinite banking policy, I'll borrow that money, and then in essence, I'm going to make a payment to myself. I'm going to keep that payment, but I'm going to make the payment to myself, and I'm just recycling that cash back through.
So smart. Right?
Yeah,
So smart.
yeah, it really is. Yeah,
It just makes so much sense.
it really does.
Right? It's like a no-brainer. So
Yeah.
my mind instantly goes to, okay, this is a tool that unless you have really great credit or unless you have a big chunk of money to plop down into it, you don't have access to it. Is that correct?
Not necessarily. So we've got
Mm,
people that they pay themselves $60,000 a year on their business, but yet their business is cash flow, not cash flow, and their business is generating 800,000 bucks a year. So I've got a guy that owns an HVAC unit, HVAC business, that he pays himself 60 grand. So he's not a quote wealthy guy, but what he
mm,
does is this is a line item in his budget. So instead of having a checking account or a savings account where he's saving for a truck or he's saving for equipment, he allocates X number of dollars per year into this policy. This policy is his reserves. In business world, in HVAC and plumbing and electric, in the service industry, they call it a war chest. Where am I putting my dollars? In real estate, they call it a capex. They call it capex. They call it capital expenditures. Where am I putting my capex money?
mm.
I bring
Right.
in $10,000 a month on rent, and I'm going to put $1,000 a month into my capex fund. It's the same thing. Instead of putting that into a savings account where if you use that money, it stops earning, why not put this thing in an insurance contract to where that money continues to grow and continues to compound over time? The God's honest truth is, it doesn't really make sense why you wouldn't do this thing for any of those types of businesses.
Yeah. So, and you don't have to even be a business though, right? Because you're
No,
literally buying a whole life insurance policy and you're utilizing the cash values as um, resources, right? It's your
correct,
capital reserves, essentially.
correct. Wherever you
It's
save money,
future
you save it in here as opposed to a savings account.
saving
So even
account.
if you're just a high W-2 earner, so say, there's a family in our town that between the two of them, they make between $400,000 and $500,000 a year.
Mm,
Well, that's great. They don't, they're not investors. They're not going to go buy rental property. They're not going to invest.
mhm,
They're going to put their money in the market. They're going to
mhm.
live, but they're still going to take a $15,000 or $20,000 vacation every year. They're still going to buy cars every 3 or 4 years. They're still going
Right,
to have a place that, hey, catch this. They're still going to send their kids to college.
right,
So why
for
not,
sure.
instead of allocating this money into a random place, why not put it where it's always going to continually grow and never stop growing no matter what the market does?
So smart. So, how is the rates then compared to if they're investing like in the market? How's the
Great.
guaranteed rate compare?
Yeah, that's a great question. So here's the one thing we have to say before we do that is this. This is not an investment tool. This is a savings
Right,
bucket. This is a savings bucket.
right,
So I've got an investing bucket, let's just call it the market, and I've got a savings bucket. Investing dollars are dollars that we can afford to lose. We're willing to take a risk on putting those
right,
dollars in the market, into a rental home, into whatever. My
right,
savings dollars, Clara, are dollars that I can't afford to lose. These are
right.
dollars that I gotta have these dollars for something at some point. New car, college for my kids. I'm saving for a vacation. We're going to go to skiing on vacation, whatever. So there's a big difference. So I'm going to answer your question.
Sure.
So the S&P 500 over the last 25 years has generated a return of 7.9%. Okay, with fees, that number's about five, a little below six. Okay, when I say fees, I'm talking about brokerage fees. This is
Sure.
going to give you a competitive rate. This rate's going to be 4% guaranteed, plus any sort of dividend. Now we both know how dividends work. The more you have ownership in a company or in a said item, the more dividends you get. So dividends are real small, but dividends grow massively as you own more and more insurance, but own more and more shares of said company. So they're going to give you 4% guaranteed, but they're also going to give you a dividend. Now the dividend grows long term. So in a savings tool, we're getting 4%. Let's just call it 4.5%. 4.5%. But what is the key? There's two keys that makes this a massive difference in the savings tool. Number one is they're not taxed on this growth. So if I go to the
Ah,
local bank or a money market
okay.
bank, my money market, I get 4% on my money. I'm getting taxed. So let's just say for easy math's sake, I'm in a 25% tax bracket. So if I get 4%, they're going to take away what? They're going to take away 25%. So my realized gain is 3%. Correct?
Right.
Okay, let's play this thing out. So I'm only getting 3% because I have to be taxed on the money that I put in a savings account, a regular
Right.
savings account. But if I have $100,000 in my savings account and I pull 50 out to go buy my wife a new car, that 50 that's at that 100 that was in the savings account is now growing at what? 50.
Right.
Okay. So let's play the
Because
same
you took the
scenario out
rest.
with it. That's it. That's it.
Yeah, you took
Let's
it.
play the same scenario out with an infinite banking account. I've got $100,000 of cash value in my account. It's growing at
Hmm.
4% plus a dividend. Call it 4.5. That's growing tax free. So I'm really getting the 4.5% gain on that. Right. I'm going to
Right.
borrow $50,000, but my IBC policy is still working at what? $100,000. It's still
100,000.
growing at that.
Right.
So understand that what we're doing here is all we are is doing what the bank has been doing for eons.
Mm,
Okay? We're doing the
right.
same thing that they're doing. We're just privatizing that thing and putting all of our excess capital into this thing. There's two things that Nelson taught us. Number one is don't be afraid to capitalize your own bank. That's rule number one. Number two, you have to think long term. You have to think long term in this thing. You and I both know, Claire, that life goes by so fast. I've got a 17-year-old
Yeah.
right now, and I remember like it was yesterday us moving from Tennessee down to Birmingham, and I think she was 8 years old, 8, and now she's
Yeah. It
17. It
flies
doesn't feel
by.
like we've been here that it
Yeah.
flies by. So if you can
Hmm.
think long term, this thing is a massive asset for you.
So, if you, speaking of how fast it goes, last month my very first great grandchild was born on my birthday. My very first great
Oh
grandchild
wow,
was born, and so they're like at the very beginning stages. But it feels like my grandchildren were just born, right? And now there's great grandchildren coming.
great
So
grandchildren.
it's just like gone, right?
Yep,
Gone like that.
yep,
Um, I mean, it doesn't even seem that long since my children were children, right? But they're in their
sure,
40s now.
yeah,
When you look at how quickly those things go, the importance of starting now becomes more evident. What
sure,
about people like us who were in our 60s, right?
yeah.
So is this a do this when you're young tool, or is this a just do it now tool?
It's a great question. So the best time to plant a tree was 40 years ago.
Yes, but we didn't.
The next
Okay.
the next best time is today.
Mm,
Okay. So depending on your family dynamic, you can start these policies in your 60s. Now, how good is your health? Or
mhm.
if you can't insure yourself, can you insure someone else? Meaning, is there another insurable person in your family? Like, for example, if your husband was 5 or 10 years younger, could you insure him? If your kids were in business with yourself, you can insure them. Again, the policy is just a mechanism to which you can create the bank. So
Ah, okay.
whoever the insured is, honestly, it doesn't really matter. Okay.
Okay.
Here's what I would say. Could you insure your grandkids? Probably. You could probably insure your kid. You being able to insure your adult kids that don't work directly with you would be really difficult. You can insure a spouse, you can insure a business partner, and you
Mm,
can insure yourself. But there's a lot of different factors. That's why everybody's situation is
mm,
different.
right.
The but we're doing a policy on a guy that's in his late 60s, early 60s, or late 50s, early 60s right now. So yes, it's absolutely doable. Now, obviously, the older you get, the more you get under a little bit of scrutiny with your health.
Sure.
Here's the key. Here's the key that I've been a disciple of, Clara, that I really, really believe in. I really, really believe that if you are a business owner and you have kids, you need to obviously pay your kids, but you need to pay your kids, but cycle that money through an infinite banking policy. It does a handful of things, and I'm going to nerd out on you a little bit. So the IRS says that you can pay your kids up to $15,000 a year for said tasks, and it has a list of whatever. I pay all three of my kids. The limit that they can be paid and not have to be federally income taxed is $15,000. So you living in Florida is wonderful, so they don't have to pay state income tax. All that the business has to pay is payroll tax. So I pay each kid, but the money goes from the business account to their checking account with their name on it into their infinite banking policy. This does a couple things. This perpetuates the growth of that dollar, and it continues to help it to grow and grow and grow and grow. That's the first thing. The second thing is that people really don't talk about is it makes your kids insurable. So I had a policy starting at 8 years old on my youngest daughter. She's insurable for the rest of her life. She's going to have millions of dollars of life insurance the rest of her life, and she's going to have this cash value. Got it on my 14-year-old son and my 17-year-old daughter. What we're doing is we are setting them up for so much more success than we have. At age 25, my kids will each have about $220,000 of cash value in this pot of money that they can do whatever they want to do with. Now, let me go back. I am the owner of the policy. If Tegan, my 14-year-old, is extremely responsible, I will give him access to this money quicker. If one of the kids makes poor decisions and they're not, quote, I hate to say it like this, but they're not capable of handling that kind of money, then I won't give them access to it. I'm still the owner of the policy. So I can turn that over to them when I see that they're capable of doing that. That's the second thing. The third thing is what this allows us to do is it allows us to teach our kids. This is one of those things that we teach our kids about. And here's what we do. We teach our kids at the dinner table. We teach our kids on car rides.
Mhm.
We just drip the information in. You know, I heard this saying once before, raindrops make oceans. And we are just continually dropping bits of knowledge on our kids in these random conversations. Windshield time on the way to practice that's 30 minutes away, on the way to a game, at the dinner table. We went to New Orleans last week on a family trip for a volleyball. We talk about things like that. So we're just slowly giving our kids this information that's going to set them up for so much more success. But the key is teaching them the proper way to use it.
Well, yeah, because nobody's heard of this before. Well, not nobody,
Yeah,
but teaching them up from the get go, I think would be
right.
super important. Whereas my children are already in their 40s, so it's not like they're that they live at home, and two of the three actually do work for us. Like we own three businesses, and they actually work for us, so they're already on payroll. So I'm not. Does that mean that you're paying payroll from that money?
Mm. So with our kids, so the kids are different because they
Mm.
quit getting the deduction when they turn 18. So
Oh, gotcha.
okay,
Okay.
excuse me. They have when they turn 18, they have to start paying federal income tax on that. So below 18, they don't have to pay the federal income tax. That's why it's such a
Okay.
hack. Now, you,
Gotcha.
for example, even though your kids are in their 30s and 40s, you could still have a policy on your kids. You can do this in a handful of different ways. Obviously you would be the owner of the policy and they would be what they call the insured. So she would be the insured, and when he or she is the insured, you're the owner. You can fund that through whatever mechanism you want to fund it through. You can fund it through the business. You can fund it through. They can fund it personally,
Okay.
whatever. Now here's the only I say it back. This money is post tax money. The money is post tax money, but
Right.
it's going to grow tax free. So it's honestly, it's what people call it the rich man's Roth. So because there's not any limits on what you can put into
Right.
these policies. You know, Roth, if you make over a certain amount, you can't do it. Then even if you do make below that
Mhm.
amount, there's a cap on what you can put in there. So what we can do is we can fund these things. Like for example, I'm not afraid to say it. My wife's is right around $100,000 a year. So I load $100,000 a year
Mm.
into one of these policies. But here's the thing. All I'm doing is taking money from my right pocket and putting it in my left pocket. I'm just giving
Right.
it another way for it to grow uninterrupted compoundingly. So if you wanted to start a policy on your kids at $20,000, $30,000 a year, $40,000 a year, whatever the number would be, that's a great thing because it's going to give you all of you access to use that capital. So there's a great book called What Would the Rockefellers Do? And that book is about how the Rockefellers used this mechanism to set up what they call
Mm.
dynasty trusts so that when Thomas passes away, where does that insurance money go? The insurance money goes to create more insurance policies for the other kids so that that bank can perpetuate itself. The insurance money doesn't go to my three kids and my wife for them to just go to Cabo and spend 6 months. This money goes to perpetuate the family's wealth
Uh,
over the next three generations. That's a whole
but if they
different
needed
podcast.
it for it, right, for sure. If they needed it for some of it, right, they could borrow for final expenses and things of that nature, right? Because that's the
Absolutely.
point of it, right? Is you have access to it.
Absolutely.
Then you just pay back into it
Yeah,
to keep
that's
it
exactly
going.
right.
Right.
Hmm.
I need one or two.
Yeah,
All right. Clearly, I need
yeah,
to set them up for my kids. We are both in our 60s, so we are going to be more expensive to insure, but we aren't on medication and we're relatively healthy and those kinds of things. So
yeah,
it might not be as bad as I'm thinking, but definitely they're in their 40s and healthy. So that
yeah.
seems like a
And if
no
you own a
brainer.
business, that makes it. If you own a business, it makes it really, really easy for whoever to fund it. Maybe this is the business that funds it.
Oh, and then is it a write off as we're
No,
funding it? No, it's not a write off. It's a
no, it's
savings,
not. It's
essentially.
savings. Yeah,
No.
yep.
Okay. Okay. My brain is going 100 different
No, no,
directions
no.
to figure out
Yep,
how all this works. Wow. This is fascinating. So this is your full-time business. This is what you do is
it
help
is.
people establish these.
We
And
do.
then you
Yes, ma'am. That's
invest in real
exactly what
estate,
we do.
obviously.
Yep.
Right.
Yes, ma'am. This is exactly what we do, and we enjoy it because when the light bulb goes off, you tell your kids something, you tell your kids something, you tell your kids something, and they really
Hmm.
don't believe you. But then all of a
Right.
sudden, something happens, and it
Hmm.
clicks, and they see it, or someone else tells them, or they
Like,
see it happen in
oh,
actual life.
yeah.
The light bulb goes off. When the light bulb goes off for
Yeah.
people in this concept, it it's like they become disciples of, like, okay, this is why have I not done this? Why did I do this 30 years
Right.
ago? This is something that I've
Right.
got to have. And we reach out to a lot of younger business owners, but we're also talking to um, a lot of people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s about what this can do for them now, but also the legacy that they can leave.
Right. Right. Yeah. I'm firm believer in that we're supposed to, you know, build a legacy for future generations, and that's definitely part of
That's right.
our core values and part of our mission in life, which is why we have our newest company, which is Lulu Lemonade, which is a legacy project, right?
Yes.
Which
Yes.
has taught my kids so much. Like they grew up seeing us own businesses and
Yeah.
understanding it, but now they're running a business. We own it,
Hmm.
but they're running it, and it's like changed their learning cycle. Even though they're,
Yeah.
early 40s, are like, okay, how much is this event going to cost us? What does our inventory look like? So we're learning whole new pieces from participating in this legacy project. So firm believer
Yeah.
that that's what we're supposed to do. So I am
Amen.
super
That's good.
excited to learn more about this, but we are just about out of time. So is
Yeah.
there some place you would like for people, or like, sign me up for them
Yeah.
to
Sure.
go and connect with you and learn more?
Hardest part about this whole thing is education, understanding the concept and understanding the
Sure.
logistics of it. And so we had so many people ask us about this. We just created a 3-part video
Mhm.
series, and you can go to
Smart.
IBC, and that's Infinite Banking Concept, IBC.money, IBC.money. And what it'll do is it'll teach you what the logistics of it. Now, look, everybody's situation is different and everything's customizable. We go to IBC.money, and there's a
Sure.
3-part video series. On the third part of each video is set for whatever it is you do, business owner, investor, or high W2.
Gotcha. 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 Okay. Dang it. We're out of time. Thank you for taking time to come on the show and educate my audience about this amazing, amazing tool. I hope they all call you. If they
That'd be
all
great.
go to ibc.money to find out how they can change not just their future, but the future generations of their family as well. Thank you for your
Right.
time, my friend.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, guys. Wow, right? Who knew what we were missing out on? And of course, I'm totally out of time, so I can't talk about it anymore. But as always, thank you for being here today. If you're interested in crafting your message for the world and building influence for your business, ministry, cause, or brand with your own book, check out my free resources over at thesavvyauthors.com. You can join our school community, or you can go to craftingyourmessage.com/academy and jump into the next Savvy Author Academy. See you guys next week.